Welcome everyone, Simon here from the Wales of Wall Street. Apologies, I've lost my microphone, which is why I haven't done some videos in the last couple of weeks. But I'm going to do this one today because obviously there has been a nice uptake in the market, particularly with XRP, which is a topic video for today. We will go into a bit of a discussion as to where we think this is going, why sort of the reasonings behind these rallies, not just with XRP, of course. This has been definitely market wide for majority of crypto assets out there. Before we do so, don't forget, of course, to check out the other videos on the channel. As always, make sure you subscribe if you have not done so already. Let's go straight into this. So, of course, we have seen some really good developments over XRP in the last week. Again, apologies for the microphone. It does maybe sound a bit tinny, but before we go into coin market cap, just to reiterate here, really basically, this is in pounds at this moment in time. In fact, just for the sake of discussion in this video, we go back to the 7th of July as an example, $2.27, and we've had a nice rally up. I think we hit the $3 mark at some point on some of the exchanges. That's recorded as something like $3.02 or 4 cents. But for argument's sake, we can just suggest 2.96. It's a really good price point that's been hit. A lot of people have been taking profits over the last couple of days, so we've had a bit more of a climatization. But more importantly, to discuss in this particular video is some of the reasonings behind what's going on here. So as I said, it's not just XRP's crypto asset. There's loads of things going on in the market. Predominantly, one of the biggest topics, particularly for this week, is the crypto week over in the US. A lot of various legislations are going through. We've got the Genius Act being discussed in fruition as well. So there's a multitude of topics and articles out there that are really emphasizing around this rise. So the crypto week is realistically showcasing a positive sentiment here. We've got the Genius Act, we've got the clarity aspects of this, we've got topics around the anti-CBDC elements here. So CBDC is something we've been talking about a lot on this channel for the last 4 or 5 years. It's something that's developed worldwide, policies being written around it, of course. There have been pros and cons for it. A lot more cons around privacy, data, control mechanisms of banking and governments around our finances, amongst a load of other things too. Now, I still anticipate CBDCs to progress. And of course, there are a multitude of assets that power this or are still in progressive talks around the policy and the framework creations for central bank digital currencies. But of course, on the other side of the coin, excuse the pun here, we are also talking about stablecoins. And we know, of course, the RLUSD format, in particular, the XRP stablecoin, has been significantly talked about over the last 12 months or so, and something that's going to have, I believe, a really interesting outcome from this week. And this could potentially be one of the reasons why a general market surge has occurred in anticipation for these potential legislations, regulations, and frameworks progressing significantly after this week. Now, that's not to say that everything's going to be ticked off this week and everything's going to be hunky-dory. There are going to be a lot of things that perhaps get rejected or need to have a bit of regrouping going on in the background. So whilst we talk about these kind of topics in detail, I do believe Crypto Week in particular for the UK, we're calling it Crypto Week, these formalities going through the Senate and the House in DC as of this week can obviously have, again, excuse the pun, a ripple effect around the world. So we've got that. We've also got the developments in relation to XRP ETFs, a really strong topic. We've seen Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. We've seen a number of other ones as well, of course. XRP has one or two in, I think, longing ETF capacities, not so much spot ETFs. This particular area really opens up the door to general mutual funds in general, stock abilities for anyone and everyone who's got a trading account outside of crypto could potentially have access to this, or certainly a pool of it. So the rumors of these XRP ETFs, I think 10 have been filed, or more than 10 have been filed. Decisions are expected in October. This falls very much in line with our philosophy over the last few years, and even the video. If you come onto our channel for the first or repetitive times, you will probably see the RTGS video that I did a few years back relating to this November period worldwide in 2025. And it's very convenient indeed, that we've had these catalytic events across the last couple of years in particular. They're all pre-planned, of course. This is not something out of thin air or a told you so moment. These are planned, intricate, detailed events and planning frameworks for a new financial system to kickstart this year, leading to the 2030 goals, the Agenda 30 Plan, World Economic Forum, and beyond. Davos, for a better word, for those that don't know who the World Economic Forum are. They may have heard of Davos. It's the same kind of thing and the same organizational aspect to it. And a lot is happening as well with wallet creation in this space for XRP, as well as a lot of the whales holding XRP are very much transporting XRP to a lot of the high-end platforms, Coinbase, for example, hinting at potential profit taking in the near future. So we're seeing almost potentially a retaliation in the sense that, well, crypto week's here, ETFs are a big topic. The next couple of months are going to be interesting. I need to start moving things off ledgers or dormant XRP into facilitation areas of trading and funding areas in our crypto exchanges to get ready for a movement. Essentially, potentially, a buy the rumor, sell the news topic. So I do anticipate there's going to be a lot of movement within this week, within the end of this week, and the coming months, particularly leading up to that November timeframe as well. You've also got Ripple pursuing the US banking charter. So this is massive in regards to the regulation towards banks and opening the door to global institutional partnerships within this area as well. You've got international recognition, as I said, a snowball effect potentially from this week onwards. And I think there's a lot of information around, where people are looking at predictive markets. I mean, here, for example, we've got Polymarket is probably one of the easiest things to look at when we look at predicting things or looking at things based on people's thoughts and feelings. You see here an ETF potential Ripple approved by July 31st, a very low percentage. That could change significantly after this week, but by the end of this year is really interesting. An 85% chance of an ETF approval being occurred within the rest of this year. You coincide that with talk about where the price point will be of XRP. I've been quite firm to the ground, suggesting that this year we could see between $5 and $10. I think the $5 is conservative if the ETFs get ticked off and the institutional platforms occur from November onwards. That could very much be a catalyst to rise the price even further. So I'm not suggesting that we could go to crazy numbers. I have seen things like $38 and $50 by the end of the year. I think that's quite far-fetched. A lot needs to happen in there. And there's a lot of holding and institutional holding of XRP already. So it's going to take a massive institutional inflow, in my opinion, as well as retail investment, of course, which holds a fairly big percentage itself, to really take that number higher. So we've just got to not necessarily sit back and see what happens, but anticipate all these different things occurring at their variable times. And of course, the liquidity surge overall is going to be interesting. Bitcoin has seen a huge, significant rise, of course, again, leading up to new all-time highs. In traditional speak, that has always filtered down to the, in brackets, altcoins. The usual traditional feature would be Bitcoin to Ethereum, then the rest. I think with the boost of Yosui and Solana, we may see that filter out a bit more into some of the top tier legacy projects. XRP could be one of those for sure, as well as the likes of Cardano, Stellar, Litecoin, all of those other ones also, where people have got an existing big holding and they've made quite a lot of money already on them, or they're waiting for that moment to take good profits from investments, say from maybe 5 to 8 years ago. So there's all these things going on, massive outlooks of legislative movements through the crypto bills or potential bills getting passed through further this week in the US. The broader markets sentiment, of course, which we've just discussed. And the interesting thing for me is the mainstream and global adoption, not necessarily just as utilizing crypto as a payment method for anyone and everyone, but from an institutional level, XRP actually being turned into something that will be significantly used on a daily basis. Forget the pilots, forget the trials, forget the minimal partnerships that are available right now and the integrations. I'm talking about worldwide integration, full integration with the new RTGS systems from November onwards. So that's very much, all the various different catalysts, all the things to think about in reaction to what's been occurring. And I did mention the RLUSD as well. That market cap has been fantastic over the last few months. I haven't seen the number exactly in the last couple of days, but I think it's well over 570 million as a market cap. I think personally that sits in very good stance as a stable coin. It's showing that a lot of liquidity is coming into this area, and the utilization of XRP is priming for something really interesting over these coming years. And yeah, as I said, the roadmap for ETF is very interesting. There's a big demand for this for sure. Let's see what happens. I think as of 2 days ago, the Congress is focusing on those crypto bills. The Genius Act is about national regulation, especially around stablecoins. We've got the Clarity Act. This is determining a really valid difference between the SEC, which has been massively problematic for Ripple and XRP, as we've known over the years, as well as other crypto assets, and the CFTC over the digital assets moving forward. So it's going to be really interesting. There's a bit of a shuffle going on here. And the Anti-CBDC Surveillance State Act, whilst I do believe this will continue overall in the world, and it depends on what party in America will be here in a few years' time, as well as in the UK and elsewhere, these policies will always shift and change depending on the narrative of the policy that these governmental parties want to instill. What's the order from above them as well, i.e. the World Economic Forum. So I'm not saying it's going away, but in this instance, when we're talking about stable coins, there's always been that sort of deflective conversation of, well, why do we need CBDCs if we've got stable coins and vice versa? At this moment in time, I think the stablecoin framework is here and it's ready. And that's why I think even if the policy changes in a few years or CBDCs do eventually come in with a different format, right here, right now, is a really big stablecoin focus. So this really heavily falls into the category of the likes of Ripple with, for example, the RLUSD, taking that XRP ecosystem to another level. So I think these are really commanding points. And let's go into the chart quickly of XRP before we wrap this. So we can just see a bit more of an extra development within the price point of XRP. I'm just going to tidy this up quickly on the right hand side so we've got a bit more space to look at here. In fact, actually first, sorry, let's look at the indicators. This is always nice to look at when it's all in a positive momentum. As you see here, we're in green across the board pretty much, bar the 6-month one. That is creeping back to green as well. The last week, the last month, in fact, have been fantastic, 28 to 36% respectively. That monthly one's very much of interest to me, as is the 3 months. It's showcasing there's a build-up, not just because of the market trends and consolidation and getting ready for the next wave up, but it suggests something, particularly when it comes to XRP assets and other assets in that legacy portfolio that I was talking about earlier. It means something's occurring, definitely, from an institutional level. Lots of trading numbers and volumes are coming in rapidly over these periods of time. And over the year, this is really positive, considering we've had a good cycle of the market, largely since, I would say, November 2024 as an example. I think we're at still maybe the quarter to middle stage of the overall cycle. I think there's a lot more to come. What I would like to see is these breakouts eventually. I'm just going to pull this one across. I'm going to move it too much. Hopefully I haven't moved it too much. This is taken one of the lower regions from a video that we did a few months ago and just analyzing from that previous top point. So you can see here, we broke out of this big area here at around the $230 and it absolutely shot up look at that, between sort of the 11th or 10th of July all the way up here to recent days, where we're currently floating around this 290 fib level. What's going to be interesting is if we stabilize here, with the respect of the news this week, we're either going to see a sell-off after the rumours, i.e. back to 255 and potentially flow around there, and then we maybe rally up again. Or so much confidence and excitement is going to come in, along with potential interest rate information. We got one here in August in the UK, I think in a few weeks' time, as well as in the US. It's fairly similar timing as well. Confidence, extra money available for investment purposes, the excitement, the FOMO. We could potentially see a rally up to 330 and then maybe 355 in the next month or two. But what's really intriguing is these Fib levels still haven't moved really from those areas at the higher regions. We circled before $4.24, for example. The next rally up to 563. Now in between that, we do need to hit some really interesting, significant points. But the positivity is there for sure. But that's where I'm kind of concluding at this moment in time, where we may see some reactions of profit taking based on the news this week, or we may see some consolidation over the next week or two for another further rally up. In between that, of course, we may not just shoot up within one day or two to these areas, but certainly there's some really interesting fib level points as we look at that. In fact, if we go to the longer term, one of the interesting ones here that we're now floating just above is the 280. And even then beyond that, as I said just before, is that $4.416 mark. So a lot is to happen. But I'm going to do another XRP video maybe towards the end of this week, once we've had a bit more finalization in the crypto week information that's coming out of Congress, etc. But there's food for thought, guys. There's some reasonings as to why not just XRP, but the other crypto assets have been rising. We have to look at the RSI. It's very high at the moment, 14 days showing 80 RSI level. I personally, there's no financial advice, but personally, I'm not buying XRP anyway, because I've been buying XRP at like 10, 12 cents years and years ago. I'm just excited and interested to see the concepts, the predictions, the thought process that we had 4 or 5 years ago starting to come into fruition as we led to 2025 and into 2030, based on what we knew and what we knew was happening in the financial world. It is exciting. Let us know in the comments below what your thoughts are on all this and any other assets you want me to cover over these coming days. I'm going to try my best to get this microphone updated as soon as possible. But thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next XRP video. Let's go.